Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications and Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. We're syndicated that way. It's so good to be with you. Thank you again so much for watching me every day, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Central, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. Let's talk about this. Okay, so I've been asked, are you a country mouse or are you a city mouse? I consider myself both. I like the conveniences of the city. Lived in the big city for many years in Charlotte, North Carolina. Got a lot of great friends out there. Then I also like the farm life. So I'm one of those, I'm split. I'm almost right down the middle. There are things I really miss about Charlotte. Mostly my friends. Things I don't like about the city could be a little gossipy sometimes, and so that's really the only thing. People in the city seem to mind their own business a little bit better than people who do in a small town in most cases. But anyway, I've got a video. Let's go ahead and check this out. I'm interested in knowing what you think about this, and then we're going to talk about the pros and the cons. So, what do you think? I love the beauty of the country, and I love raising my own vegetables. And you can do that in town too. We talked about the several episodes on the show about, if you live in say in an apartment, and maybe you have an outside patio, you can still grow your own food. There are ways to do that through trellises and that kind of thing. But let's go ahead and talk about this. I found this article on MoneyMow, M-O-W, like you mow grass.com. Small town versus big city. What are the pros and what are the cons? So the writer of the article says, my wife and I have long discussed whether we should stay in the big city or move to a small town. There are many aspects to consider, both financial and non-financial. And there are pros and cons for living in the big city and living in a small town. So Here are their thoughts so far. So let's find out what they did. First of all, they're talking about the cost of living. Now, being a personal finance blogger is who this article person is. He says, I, of course, have to start with the cost of living in the big city versus a small town. The bottom line is that almost everything is more expensive in a big city compared to a small town. In general, housing costs tend to be much higher in big cities than in small towns. More people want to live in big cities, and there's limited space. It's almost a supply versus demand kind of thing going on, which drives up the prices. Living in a small town, you will get much more bang for your buck when looking for housing. But for instance, we're on 38 acres of land right here on this farm. There are 2 houses on it. Mother lives in our other house. And then we have several outbuildings and things like that. There's a pasture out here. There's a pond. This particular, of course, we paid full price for the pond. For the whole farm. This was my granddad's farm. It's been rumored, that's another thing about living in a small town. It's been rumored that, that we didn't buy it, but we did and paid the full price for it. However, if we bought something of this value in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we lived for several years, about 9 years, it would be much higher than this. We'd probably pay about 4 times what this cost. And that's just the way it is. Again, supply versus demand. Charlotte, North Carolina is a great, great city. I mean, it really is. I enjoyed living there. And going to say right here, you might be able to get a bigger house in a small town at a lower cost than in big cities. Furthermore, depending on the country you live in, the property taxes could be equally lower. And that's true. I know our property taxes here in Alabama are much lower than they were in North Carolina. Now, depending on where you live in North Carolina, we were in the biggest city in North Carolina, which was Charlotte. And there, your city taxes, your house taxes, land property taxes are going to be much higher. So that's always a consideration. And a lot, if you have a mortgage, most mortgage companies will let you put that onto your mortgage payment as well. However, living in a big city myself, he said he owned an apartment. He said, I also know how much you can earn on real estate price increases. Real estate in big cities typically increase more than in small towns due to, folks moving in and out. Charlotte's a transit city. People were constantly in and out. It was the banking capital of the United States. I didn't know that until after we moved. All the big cities had their corporate headquarters there. The question is whether the price increase can justify a potential higher mortgage, real estate taxes, and etc. Of course, owning expensive real estate in big cities, you might have a bigger risk in case of a housing market crash. That's a huge possibility. Now, getting bang for your buck is not only the case for housing. You've got the prices of groceries, restaurants, also might be lower in smaller cities on average. I know a case of a national bakery chain in Denmark, says the author, that heavily price discriminate based on whether the shops are in small towns or in big cities. Now, finally, job opportunities tend to be better and salaries higher for most jobs types in big cities. So if you don't want to commute every day, this is, of course, worth considering. Now, the big city pros. So let's talk about this. More job opportunities, higher salaries, potential for higher real estate prices. In small town cons, more bang for the buck across most of the largest expense categories, including housing. All right, let's talk about activities. There sure was a lot more to do in the big city. This is one of the non-financial things, the city, that we really treasure. I know some of my friends who have moved from other parts of the country into Alabama. We all are close-knit, and so we have that, live somewhere else, and we moved here to DeKalb County, Alabama. The thing they really miss is convenience. They love to go out on the town, go to restaurants and that kind of thing. We just don't have that here. So the city is more vibrant than a small town. The busy life in the city is not for everyone, but he said, I must admit that we use the city quite a lot. Now, the city has the characteristic of a unique area. They have nice stores, good food, plenty of schools, childcare options, public transportation, at least in some cities, and playgrounds. There are many opportunities to take lessons, courses, such as music, art, and languages. I missed that part. There are plenty of things for kids to do. The small town only has a limited selection of the above, and it's often not in close proximity to home. But let me say this, that's what YouTube is for. Okay, so if you're in a small town, you want to know how to do something, you can take college courses online. Actually, when I took my classes through Auburn University recently, there was a satellite area close by. I didn't have to go all the way to Auburn. So that was pretty cool. So, you can learn and you can grow and you can do all these different things in a small town too. The small town only has a limited selection and it's not often close to home. Okay, you might not value these activities in the big city, in which case the small town might suit you better, but for now, this is one of the main reasons that they have decided to stay in the city. However, the city pleasures also cost you more than a small town. Now, here are big city pros, and this has to do with activities. Much more life with plenty of opportunities. Small town pros, much more quiet, less busy. Lack of expensive activities might save you money. I know Phil wanted to take me to the ballet. So we went to, it was the Nutcracker. They were showing at one of the huge theaters. It was this really old theater. I think it was built in the 1800s, and it was magnificent. It was beautiful. So it was Christmas, and he said, before we move, I want to take you to see the Nutcracker. Well, he didn't have a good time at all. In fact, I would look over at him and look like he might be just about to fall asleep, and I'd go, he didn't have so much fun, but he wanted me to enjoy watching the Nutcracker. So, that was fun to me. But I will tell you this, Northeast Alabama Community College, located right here in DeKalb County, kind of right in the smack dab in the middle of DeKalb County and Jackson County. They have plays. I mean, it's like worthy. I mean, it's worthy to go. If you live in Atlanta, you want to come and see the plays here. This group, they do an awesome, awesome job. So I wanted to point that out. Yeah, you may have to dig for it, but you'll find it. And we do have that right here in DeKalb County, Alabama. Let's cut into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a minute. We're going to talk, are you a city mouse?
You have been at this for 12 years. Why are you doing it? Because God's children are not for sale.
Rated PG-13.
At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes. Jeff McCurdy of the McCurdy Law Firm has been a public service of this area for over 10 years. McCurdy, a member of the Henniger City Council, serves as prosecutor for the town of Sylvania and was named public defender for the city of Rainsville. The McCurdy Law Firm is located at 17326 Alabama Highway 75 in Henniger to better represent his Jackson and DeKalb County clients. If you need to be represented by a true public servant with proven success, call Jeff at 256-996-8701 or send a private email to mccurdylawfirm@gmail.com. No representation is made that the legal services performed is greater than the legal services performed by other lawyers. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. Okay, we're back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of The Edge on IC Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and we are syndicated on Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire. Some news coming out really soon about our podcast, making a few changes there. We're really, really excited about the change, so you can hang in there. It'll be happening in the next couple of weeks or so, and I'm going to be shouting it out from the rooftops when it does happen. Let's talk about country versus city transportation. Okay, and if you live in a small town, you might have a harder time getting around. We really haven't. You can get around really good here. Just need reliable transportation. Look out after your car. Make sure the tires are changed and the air and all that kind of stuff. But from a financial perspective, you might need a car, which could be costly. Currently, he says, in the big cities, by the way, most people don't own a car. They don't even have a driver's license. They've never had one. From New York, I have friends in New York who have never had a driver's license. They always use public transportation everywhere they go. So I can ride around on my bike, he says. So I have everything is relatively close. That's one good thing about New York that I really liked. Was back in the day when Starbucks first came out. Man, I love some Starbucks. I really did. And the neat thing about where I was staying, I'm going trainings and sessions. It was close to. It was in the Trump building. It's where it was really, really nice, by the way. And so there was like on one block right across from the top Trump building, there were I think 3 or maybe even 4 Starbucks. So I would have my choice every time I'd come in from the hotel room to go take some training. I'd get me some Starbucks. It cost a lot to do that too. I'd rather make my own coffee at this point. So he says I can ride around on my bike since everything is relatively close. If I need to go further, I can use public transportation. He says I can even use ride-hailing services like Uber or Lyft. I could also use some of the emerging car sharing companies. A lot of folks do that. They go in together and share a car. It also allows me to rent cars by the minute at much monthly lower cost than owning a car. Yeah. I mean, if you live in a big city, if I lived in a big city, that's exactly what I would do. We lived in a suburb outside of Charlotte, which is really nice, close to the city though, but it was really good. But we wanted a car, and didn't want to live in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina. It was just too much of the good stuff. Lived on a private cul-de-sac. Wonderful, awesome neighbors. I'm still in contact with all of them. They were just fabulous. Now, in a small town, you very much dependent on a car. You got to have one to get around, except if you don't ever leave the small town. Now, for some people living in small towns, you'll need to drive long distances to get a haircut, maybe to shop for clothes, or enjoy various types of entertainment. The same goes for last-minute items. If you just forgot to buy a crucial ingredient for your dinner, yeah, that can be a hassle. This increases the need for a car. Now, on top of the amount required to purchase the car, the running cost of gas and maintenance should also be included. You got to think about that. This could be a costly endeavor that definitely needs to be considered before moving to a small town. Now, aside from the financial aspect, there's also the time spent commuting. Living in a small town, you might have to spend a lot of time commuting, especially if you work in a big city. A lot of folks in this area work in work in Chattanooga, or maybe they go to Birmingham or in Huntsville. Especially if you work in a big city, of course, you might also have to travel further to visit your family and friends. Now, here are the big city pros, okay? Shorter distances to travel, meaning less time spent in transit. I would argue with that sometimes. Sometimes you would be stuck. So we drove where we went. So sometimes just to drive a mile, I might get stuck for 30 minutes, just depending. Lower transportation costs, but not necessarily needing one or more cars. Phil and I got used to, you just need one car, and when you have two cars, you've got your tax, you've got your insurance, you have all of that. We're driving around with one car right now, so that's just fine, because my studio is actually on the farm, so that really don't need two cars. Small town pros, none, except you get closer to work, activities, friends, and families by moving to a small town. The family thing, though, I kind of argue with that sometimes. So, nature and pollution. Okay. An important thing to consider is the closeness to nature and the pollution level in big cities versus small towns. One of the things I dislike most about the city is the pollution level. I agree with that. Many large cities have a pollution problem. In fact, WHO estimates that 4.2 million people die from air pollution every year alone. He says, for me, that's a major drawback of living in the city. It's major, especially now that we will be parents. We're considering what kind of air we want to expose our children's lungs to. So on top of this, most cities are not as closely located to unspoiled nature as small towns are. If you like spending time in the nature, this is, of course, something to consider. Now, there are lots and lots of parks. I know in Charlotte, there were lots of real nice parks out there. So if you were, let's say you had you worked in town, and I did when I was at the station. I was right smack in the middle of the city, at the TV station there. But there were little walking trails around too. So if you wanted just to get out and just look at some green, you could do that. And most big towns do that now. So big city pros, none. Small town pros, even often lower air pollution, often closer to nature. This is what I like. I like being closer to nature. Okay, and let's talk about this one. Family and friends. One of the most important things, it says, for his wife and he is hard to say whether the big city or small town in general is better than the other because it's highly individual. It really is. It depends on how close you are to your family. One of the main things keeping my wife and me in the city is the majority of our friend and family still live in our city. For us, one of the hardest things about moving to a small town would be the distance to close friends and family. He says it's impossible to say whether the big city or a small town will be best for you in terms of family and friends. I guess it will be up to you to figure out. So that's one thing he could not answer. Okay, so here is the $1 million question. He says, do we want to move to a small town? He says, right now, no. They want to stay in the big city. However, there's a few things that could make us consider moving to a small town in the future. If our friends and family move out of this city, which has already started happening slowly, he says, if we get many kids and need more space than affordable apartments and houses in the city can provide. Got to have some leg room, got to have room for those kids to get up there and play. If we want to have a garden where our kids can play, I highly encourage that. Teaching a kid to garden, they'll never go hungry. If pollution levels increase further and make it less attractive to live in the city, they may consider moving. He says also, if we want to become financially independent even faster than currently planned. I have a friend who lived in California, and so they had a very modest, I think they said their house was 1,200 square feet. It was brick, and it was one level. And I think they said it was a ranch-style house and 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. They sold that house for around $1 million and moved to Alabama, paid cash for a monster house. I mean, it was just incredible what they did, and because they were able to do that. Again, housing a lot more affordable here in Alabama. Now, how do you decide what's good for you? So how do you decide whether to live in the big city or a small town? You want to be a country mouse or a city mouse? We sat down and we prioritized the criteria, such as the cost of living, activities, transportation, and we rated them from 1 to 5, depending on how important they were for us. So they said for each one of the criteria, we scored them based on how attractive they were for a big city and a small town. So he says, in the end, we took the sum of the product and how important the criteria were and how well the different locations lived up to them, and they based that from 1 to 5. Now, he says, not to say that this decision should be a mathematical exercise. He says, but for us, it served as a great framework to start discussions about where we really wanted to live. For now, they say, it is the big city, not the small town. You know what? Sometimes we think about, was it a mistake to move back to our hometown, to actually where I graduated from high school. And sometimes I think it was there. You get into a messier family environment here. I have a sibling who lives like right next door that I haven't seen, and she hasn't come to visit since we moved back. We moved back in 2013. This is 2023. So that gets kind of dicey and it's uncomfortable sometimes. But I love the farm. I really do. And we love the gardening part of it. The fresh air. We really love all of that. I do miss my friends in Charlotte. I mean, we're lifelong friends. That's never going to stop. Most of my friends around here are people who don't necessarily live in the town that I'm in right now. Most of the people, my friends here, are from people who have lived somewhere else as well, and they've come in. They feel a little bit out of place sometimes, and I understand that. Sometimes they think they might want to move back, but I understand that as well. But it's for you to figure out: are you a city mouse or are you a country mouse? I think I'm kind of both. I like the city stuff, I really do, but I really love the outside, and it's always a lot of fun. I love being out. Thank you so much for watching The Edge. My name is Donna, and again, you are so awesome, and thank you again so much for watching wherever you live. Thank you again so much for watching, and if you have any suggestions for shows, just had one just now, City Mouse or Country Mouse, you can send an email to Donna@donnasedge.com. That's Donna@donnasedge.com. You take care. I'll see you shortly.